Right now, somewhere in your inner ear, in the soles of your feet, in the back of your skull, a quiet recalibration is happening. It's been happening for years. Most people never notice it until the day they almost don't catch themselves. This isn't a video about exercises you've already heard of. This is about what's actually changing inside your nervous system after 65, and the one habit, the one well-meaning habit, that quietly makes balance worse instead of better. I'll get to that. It's the most important thing in this video, and it's almost never talked about. Let's start with what your body is actually doing. My name is Adrian Solberg. For a long time, my work put me in rooms with people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, watching the same patterns repeat, conversation after conversation. Not dramatic falls, small things first. A stumble on a curb, a wobble getting out of the car, a moment of catching the counter that didn't used to be necessary. 2 questions before we go further. Just sit with them for a second. When was the last time you felt completely steady? Not fine, but steady the way you did at 40. And have you noticed small changes, a little more caution on stairs, a little more reaching for furniture, that you've quietly filed away as just getting older? If either of those landed, this video is for you. Not because something is wrong, because something is changing, and changes you understand are changes you can work with. Here's the common assumption. Balance is mostly about leg strength. Weak legs, wobbly balance. Strong legs, steady balance. So, people respond by either pushing harder on strength, or, more often, by quietly doing less, because less activity feels safer. But this is where almost everyone misses what's actually happening. Balance isn't one system, it's 3 systems, constantly cross-checking each other, every second you're upright. Your vestibular system, fluid-filled structures deep in your inner ear that sense head position and movement. The way a carpenter's level senses a tilt. Your proprioceptive system, sensors in your joints, tendons, and especially your feet and ankles, reporting your body's position in space without you having to look. And your visual system, which doesn't just let you see obstacles but constantly feeds your brain information about your orientation relative to the world around you. Your brain, largely a structure called the cerebellum, sitting at the base of your skull, takes input from all 3, resolves any disagreement between them, and issues corrections to your muscles. All of this happens below conscious thought, dozens of times a second. Aging doesn't break this system. It quietly degrades each input and slows the processing in between. Clinical research shows the number of sensory hair cells in the vestibular system declines over the decades. Nerve conduction in the feet and ankles slows. The cerebellum's integration speed drops. None of these alone causes a fall. Together, stacked, they shrink your margin for error. That's the part almost nobody explains. It's not that your balance breaks. It's that your safety margin, the gap between a small stumble and an actual fall, gets thinner every year unless you actively maintain it. I want to walk through 5 patterns I watched repeat, over and over, in people who later lost more independence than they needed to, ranked from subtle to significant. Pattern 1. The quiet feet. Most people think numbness or tingling in the feet is just circulation or getting older. Often it's peripheral nerve signal loss, the proprioceptive sensors in your feet sending a weaker, delayed signal up to your brain. Think of it like a building's wiring slowly losing voltage. The lights still come on, just a half second slower, a little dimmer. Your feet are your primary contact with the ground. When that signal weakens, your brain leans harder on vision to compensate, which is part of why balance often gets noticeably worse in dim rooms or with eyes closed in the shower. Correction, step, brief barefoot balance, work on safe, soft ground, even 30 seconds holding a counter, keeps those foot sensors actively communicating with your brain instead of going quiet from disuse. Pattern 2, the slowing reflex. A young person who tips sideways corrects almost instantly. A quick step, a small adjustment, often before they're even consciously aware of the tilt. That correction speed depends on fast nerve conduction and fast twitch muscle fibers, the type used for sudden, forceful movement. Both decline with age faster than slow twitch endurance muscle fibers do, especially without targeted use. So, you can have decent walking endurance and still have a slow recovery reflex. Because endurance and quick correction strength are different systems entirely. Correction step, brief controlled practice of weight shifts and step recovery. Not just walking, keeps that fast reaction pathway active. Pattern 3, the blood pressure lag. Stand up too fast and feel briefly lightheaded? That's often a drop in blood pressure. Your autonomic nervous system didn't compensate for quickly enough, a condition called orthostatic hypotension. It becomes more common with age, and it's frequently amplified by common medications for blood pressure, sleep, or anxiety. This is a vascular and nervous system issue, not a balance issue in the inner ear sense, but it produces some of the most dangerous falls because it happens in the first seconds after standing, often near stairs or in the bathroom at night. Correction step, pause and steady yourself for a few seconds after standing, especially from bed. It's a small habit with an outsized protective effect, and worth mentioning to your doctor if it happens often. Pattern 4, the divided brain. Walking while talking or walking while reaching into a bag asks your brain to manage motor control and another cognitive task simultaneously. Neurological studies on aging show this kind of divided attention, sometimes called dual tasking, gets measurably harder with age because the same processing capacity is doing more with less spare bandwidth. This is why so many falls happen not on difficult terrain, but on ordinary ground while someone is distracted, turning to answer a question, checking a phone, carrying something. Correction step, on uneven ground, stairs, or in low light, give walking your full attention. It's not weakness to do this, it's accurate risk management. Pattern 5, the furniture habit. This one's subtle, and it sets up the most important point in this video. Many people, sensing their balance isn't what it was, start using furniture, walls, and counters for support more and more, reaching for something solid almost automatically, even when they don't strictly need it. It feels protective, and in the short term, it prevents a specific fall in a specific moment. But used as a constant habit rather than an occasional aid, it does something easy to miss. It slowly trains your nervous system to rely on external support instead of its own internal correction systems. The very systems we just talked about, vestibular, proprioceptive, reflexive, need to be used under real, unsupported conditions to stay calibrated. Lean on the counter every time, and your brain quietly stops practicing the correction it would otherwise need. That habit, leaning towards support instead of trusting and training your own system, is the doorway into the single most important insight in this video. If you recognized yourself in 2 or more of these, the quiet feet, the slower reflex, the dizziness on standing, the divided attention, the reach for furniture, please don't tune out for what's next. This last part is the one I most wish people understood years earlier than they usually do. Here is what almost everyone gets backward. When balance starts to feel less reliable, the instinct is to protect yourself by moving less. Walk shorter distances. Avoid stairs when possible. Sit rather than stand. It feels responsible. It feels like caution. But this is precisely backward, and clinical literature on aging and mobility is unusually consistent on this point. Reduced activity in response to balance concern doesn't preserve your stability. It accelerates its decline. Here's why, physiologically. Every system we've discussed, vestibular adaptation, proprioceptive signaling, fast twitch reflex strength, cerebellar integration speed, maintains itself through use. These aren't systems that simply hold steady at rest. They are calibrated continuously by real-world movement, much the way a shock absorber stays responsive only as long as it's actually absorbing shocks. Take it out of use and it stiffens, not from age alone, but from disuse layered on top of age. So the person who, after a stumble, starts sitting more and walking less isn't protecting their balance. They're allowing the very systems that prevent falls to go quiet from lack of use, while fear of falling grows in the background. This is sometimes called the fear avoidance cycle in geriatric care. Caution reduces activity. Reduced activity reduces capability. Reduced capability increases real fall risk, which increases fear further. It is a closing loop, not a safe holding pattern. I wish more people understood this earlier than they usually do, often not until after a fall has already happened, and the conversation becomes about recovery instead of prevention. The correction isn't reckless activity. It's the opposite of avoidance, done deliberately and safely. A simple 3-step daily approach. 1. Each day includes some movement that genuinely challenges balance under safe conditions. Standing on one foot near a counter, walking heel to toe along a hallway, a short, unsupported stand from a chair without using your hands. 2. Keep walking distances and stair use as close to your normal baseline as safely possible, rather than shrinking them preemptively. 3. If a stumble happens, resist the urge to permanently scale back afterward. Talk to a physician about why it happened. Medication, vision, inner ear, blood pressure, and address that specific cause rather than treating reduced movement as the general fix. Slow, deliberate, consistent. That's the protocol. Not bigger effort, fewer disuse gaps. Left unaddressed, this pattern doesn't stay still. The research on aging and mobility describes a fairly consistent trajectory. Reduced activity leads to measurable declines in muscle mass and reflex speed, which increases fall risk, which increases hospitalization risk after a fall, which, particularly after hip fractures in older adults, is strongly associated with a loss of independent living afterward. This isn't a guarantee, and it isn't inevitable. It's a pattern, and patterns can be interrupted. The choice in front of you isn't dramatic. It's not exercise intensely or decline. It's simply keep your balance systems in active use, or let disuse quietly do what age alone wouldn't do as fast. Independence preserved is rarely the result of one big decision. It's the result of small, repeated ones. The kind almost nobody notices themselves making in either direction. Tonight, when you stand up, from your chair, from your bed, from the couch, pause for just a moment before you move. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice whether you reach for support out of real need or out of habit. That's not a test. It's just attention, and attention is most of what this video has been about. Your balance isn't simply declining because of age. It's responding every day to how it's used. That's not a frightening fact. It's a useful one, because it means you have more influence over this than most people realize. If this kind of grounded explanation is useful to you, consider subscribing. There's more like it ahead. I'm Dr. Adrian Solberg. Stay aware, stay proactive, and take care of your body. I'll see you in the next video.